What is up, everybody? Welcome to Pub Sports Radio and welcome to the Draftkings Picks and Prediction Show. We have Lerone Murphy going against Edson Barboza. We got back in the Apex here for is it 11 or 12 fight? I think 12 fight card now. We lost to Trócoli and then in steps Toka. So we have 12 fights. Interesting card. It is an Apex card. Looking forward to. We got Weezy, Monk, and Gordo in the building as always. We'll start with you, Weezy. Looking forward to UFC Vegas 92.
It's a pretty low-level card, man. And we got some really low-level fighters. We got situations where people are really juiced favorites because they're not because they're great fighters, but because their opponent's so terrible. So we got to be kind of careful about that. This is one of those weeks where you can afford to pay up when you're on DraftKings, but when it's when you're betting on straight lines, some of these fights are unbettable. But with DraftKings, you can kind of get creative and find some spots that make sense. So let's find those spots.
Let's do it. By the way, I just noticed how terrible my hair is. I'm having a bad hair day. Look like Irina Alexeyeva out here. So, but it is what it is. It is what it is. Monk, I see you're having a good hair day. So that's good. How are you doing? You looking forward to UFC Vegas 92?
Yeah, always a good hair day. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it mostly because there's not fights next week. So we're not going to sit here and disparage a card and then I'll be crying all Saturday because I got nothing to do fight-wise. So there are some interesting fights here. 12-fight card, ideal for DFS, and there's some interesting spots. Yeah, a lot of big lines. Hopefully we'll get to go over most of them, and we're still down a salary for a fight. So we'll try to fill you in there, but we'll do the best we can with what we got this week.
Yep, still waiting on salaries for Sai and Tokus. Hopefully they get them out hopefully soon. Gordo, you looking forward to UFC Vegas 92?
I like that optimism from Monk. We're not going to have fights next week. Let's live in the moment. Let's enjoy them. That's all I got to say. Let's try to enjoy them. It is definitely an interesting card to say the least. One where I'm excited to go out there and hopefully break it down with you guys, get some reads, and try to make some money off of it. Let's try our best here.
Let's do it. By the way, Gordo, how was UFC St. Louis? That was last week, right?
I saw Derek Lewis's bare ass.
Oh, yeah. Did you? You saw you're in a good spot. Okay.
That's all I got to say, really. No, the card was electric, dude. The atmosphere was incredible. Some really good knockouts, some really good fights. And it was crazy that was just a fight night. Yet that was one of the craziest crowds I've been a part of, too. So I had a very good time. And I'm looking forward to the next one.
Yeah, it was a fun card from just watching at home. So I couldn't imagine how fun it was there. So glad you had fun. All right, guys, let's get into it. Before we do so, like the video, subscribe here to Pub Sports Radio. We appreciate you guys. And yeah, Gordy, you did get a Gary Copeland pick. It was awesome. You know what? Man. I know after seeing that pick, I told Weezy on Stat Diggers, like, I think I changed my tune on Gary Copeland. He looks like a nice guy. So
that's how he gets you.
Maybe you're right, but I think I'm gonna put the beef aside. Gary Copeland, he's all right with me now. After a pick like that,
I think he was happy to be out there. Someone noticing him, taking a picture with him, and not throwing beers at him. I think it was a good change, and maybe he'll change for the better.
Yeah, and hopefully Keith Peterson's right behind them. All right, we'll move on to UFC Vegas 92. We'll start with our fight to target. And let's start with our Uncle Weezy. Uncle Weezy, which fight are you targeting for UFC Vegas 92?
Let's get right in the middle here to Carlston Harris versus Khaos Williams. I think that both of these guys have potential to finish this fight. I think both of these guys are pretty high-scoring fighters in the whole scheme of things. 3.26 points per minute for Khaos Williams, 3.24 points per minute for Carlston Harris. Points per win is 98 for Williams, 92 for Harris. And I think it's going to be an all-action fight. Both of these guys have some power on the feet. I think we could see Carlston Harris potentially get a few takedowns, rack up some control time. And both the guys, they both have power, so I could see either one of them getting a finish. And obviously, Carlston Harris's chokes are no joke. And even if it goes to decision, you're getting more than 3 points per minute out of each guy. That could spell at least 80 points in a decision. So yeah, it's not the worst play in the world.
Yep, I put that one down. I did not write down a second, but there is a second I do like, and it's going to be another fight that is going to be in the mid-range. It's Themba Gorimbo going against Ramiz Brahimaj. So there's a lot of like narrative things surrounding this fight. Brahimaj has been off for a while. He had like major like a spine or back problem. He's 7,800. He has a 100% finish rate, all those coming by submission. So I think if Brahimaj is winning this fight, it's going to be within the first round and a half, or so right off the bat, he's an intriguing dog. And then as far as Gorimbo goes, I think the longer this fight goes, the more it favors him. Like if he's able to get this fight to the second round, I think his chances skyrocket in terms of winning the fight. I think there's gonna be a lot of grappling exchanges between the two. I think we're going to see some reversals. I think we can see a finish early or late, early from Brahimaj, late from Gorimbo. So another fight in the mid-range that I like. But yeah, I did have down that Khaos Williams, Carlston Harris fight as well. I'm liking the mid-range a lot this week. Gordo, what is your favorite fight to target for UFC Vegas 92?
I like those two, and I like the mid-range as well, but let's go one where we don't know where it's going to fall. Let's talk about that fight with no salary. Let's talk about Tukos. Let's talk about C. And guys, don't get mad at Tukos. You know, I know there's no salaries out for him, but I owe him a lot. I mean, he introduced me to my Valentine, Ming Yang Zhang. He's the reason that he's there. And you know what? Not going to make any jokes about, you know, him getting pounded by my Valentine in that fight, but he did. And that's really what we were able to see from him, as a guy who is going to be killer to be killed. He has a very electric style. Chin, questionable engagements are definitely there, but he is someone who I do think has a decent ability to go there and push a pace. And I think in a matchup like this, that is minus 200 to finish under 7.5 minutes, a fight that is going to be relatively on research by many, maybe one that goes a bit overlooked in what should be a very high-paced, high-action affair that is projected inside the distance. I'm liking both sides. All jokes aside, I do think that if it does slot in at these price tags, there may be some value on this Tukos guy, whereas I do think C is the rightful favorite.
Oh yeah, I do see they have a total now. So it opened up, the under opened up minus 105. It's now minus 154. So people are expecting some early violence in this one. All right. And then Monk, what is your favorite fight to target?
Yeah, I love those. I'll go with the main event. Lerone Murphy, Edson Barboza here, especially if this one goes all 5. Look, this just happened. We just did this with Barboza, man. He was 7,500 last time, so he's a little bit more expensive. That fight with him and Sadiq that went all 5 and he took the dub. Doesn't matter if he took both guys scored 99 points without the bonus in that fight. With the bonus, there's almost 225 total points scored in Youssef versus Barboza. I think we're going to see a kind of similar fight here. Lots of striking. We saw a couple of knockdowns. We saw some takedowns. We're at like 16% control time. We got a little bit of everything, and it scored off the charts. So absolutely, if this one is going to decision, I'm loving that for DraftKings in all formats. So definitely one of my top fights to target.
Sounds good. So yeah, a lot of us went mid-range. Gordo went with salaries we do not have yet, but hopefully DraftKings gets those out soon. I mean, the fight's been announced, I think, for like 2 days now, a day and a half. So hopefully they get them out soon. We get those salaries. But moving on to the fight to fade, and we'll start with you, Gordo. What fight are you fading for UFC Vegas 92?
Now, we may have more options to fade than we do to target this week. You know, it's definitely a card that's looking like it could be the case. Let's go with one of them off the rip. Go Melissa Gatto, Tamiris Vidal. And I know you like Tamiris Vidal power threat. This could have some value. No, well, let's be realistic here. This most likely, in my opinion, is going to be one that is going to be a bit slower pace. And at these salaries, I would much rather play the mid-range. I would much rather go up to get Tom Nolan. I just don't think I really have a world where I'm going to want to play Melissa Gatto at 9.4K very often. She is someone who is projected to win. And although she should have some grounds, could have some ground success here, she is going to need a very optimal performance to go out there and beat everybody else in this price range. I do think it's one where I'm happy to go other places. I do think that's a salary that may be a bit higher than my needs, and one where I'm not really getting to Vidal much either.
Yeah, I went with that fight as well, the Gatto Vidal fight. I'm actually very confident Gatto. I actually think she scores decent. It's just the fighters around her, I think, just score better. I think Tom Nolan destroys Victor Martinez in the first round, probably gets a knockdown or two. I think Adrian Yanez destroys Vinicius Salvador, probably gets a knockdown or two. And then I think even Magomedov can go out there and destroy Warlley, Alves and get a knockdown or two all in the first. I think all 3 of those can win in like the first or second round. So yeah, as far as Gatto, I think she wins. I think she can even get a finish, but I just like the fighters around her. And then as far as Vidal, I'm not even thinking about touching her at 6,800. So yeah, I went with that one as well. Monk, what fight are you fading for this week?
Yeah, that's definitely on my list. I only have one more. It's going to be the first fight of the night. Dakota Demopoulos here. Both women averaging the least and second least amount of DraftKings points per win at 80. So that is not a good number if if you know anything about numbers and how they work. It definitely needs to be a little bit more than that to pay off some salaries here, especially at Dakota. I don't even know. She's like super expensive, isn't she? Is she 9,200?
9,200.
That's freaking wild, bro. She scored 82 against Yoder, 76 against Jessica Penne. I mean, I guess there's a chance here against Demopoulos, but if Demopoulos is one thing, it's pretty freaking tough. And she's not out here really getting finished. She's 4-1 in her last 5. She scores up and down, not quite 100, but then she'll score like 60 against Kanado Mercana. So I'm not really looking forward to this one. Is from a DraftKings perspective. I think 70 to 80 points is probably on par for what we can expect here. If anything, Demopoulos is kind of a little cash punt. And Dakota is, my God, almost untouchable, it seems like, at 9,200. So definitely looking at this one to fade.
Yep. And then Weezy, which fight are you fading for this week?
Yeah, I'm going with you, Brady, with the Gato versus Vidal fight, because at 9,500 you've got Tom Nolan and his opponent stinks, and at 9,300 you got Adrian Yanez and his opponent stinks, right? And at 9,400 you got Gato and her opponent stinks in Tamaris Vidal. So you're like, okay, we got 3 fighters that really stink down here at the bottom. Which ones do we want to pick against the fighters that stink? Well, Gato's probably got the least finish equity out of those 3 fighters. Like Nolan's probably going to pick Victor Martinez up and throw him out of the fucking cage after he's through with him. I mean, and then with Yanez, this guy Salvador doesn't belong in the UFC's flyweight division, and he's already proven that not once but twice. And now he's moving up to bantamweight to fight a guy that used to have a number next to his name. Has been in there with Font and Martinez. He's going to run into a dick saw. So while Vidal does stink, she doesn't stink as bad as Victor Martinez or Vinicius Salvador. So I think you can really just avoid that Gato Vidal fight.
Yeah, they all definitely stink. That's for sure. Yeah. All right, let's move on to the fighter to fade. I will kick this one off. Monk touched on this fight, I believe. It is going to be Emily Ducote, 9,200. Yeah, I think she wins. I think she scores like okay. I like the volume that she brings to the table, and Vanessa Demopoulos is a walking punching bag with a 43% strike and defense. But with significant strikes only being 0.4 DraftKings points rather than 0.5 like they used to, I just struggle to see how Ducote goes out there and puts up like 100 plus. I think she goes out there and puts up 100 plus significant strikes, but what is that score? Probably not much with the decision win. So yeah, it's Ducote for the fade. Weezy touched on it. We got Yanez up there. We have Nolan up there, and I'd probably rather play Gatto as well over Ducote. So yeah, I'm gonna be fading Ducote this week. We'll go to Gordo. Who are you fading this week?
Well, I personally am also fading Emily Ducote, but you've mentioned that quite well. Let's go to somebody else here. I'm also fading Cledson Rodriguez, and don't get me wrong, I'm picking him to win. He's a guy who I still think is a fighter who should be favored in this matchup, but in a mid-range that is so stacked with fights expected inside of the distance, with fights still to be grappling upside. I don't necessarily know if Cledson Rodriguez has that same type of upside. He's someone who I do think wins, but more so with volume, more so with striking. Alex Healy is super durable. I think Healy is someone who can still go out there and wrestle as well. I think the path to victory for Rodriguez could very well be a striking-based decision, one where he goes out there and scores 70, 80 points, and one that I don't necessarily think outscores people around him. So although the main fade is Ducote, there are a little bit of reasoning for a guy like Cledson Rodriguez as well.
Let's go to Weezy. Which fighter are you fading this week?
Yeah, I'm fading Ducote. I'm fading Gatto, and I'm fading Cledson Rodriguez. And the reason I'm fading Cledson is because Haley Alatang, over his UFC career, and it spans 7 fights, you guys, this guy's only allowing 2.39 points per minute. So he can actually wrestle you a little bit, mostly in the 3rd round, hold you down and just kind of like work clock and make it so you don't score so many points. But also, he's this counter striker. He's a low volume counter striker who's just kind of waiting for you to make a mistake, and then he chucks that overhand right like he's throwing a baseball. When you're fighting a fighter like that, it's hard to be offensive. It's hard to be aggressive because you know that that's what your opponent wants. So I think Cledson's output's going to slow down. I think Gatto has got a matchup against a fighter that stinks, but not as much as the ones around her. And Ducote, it's almost impossible to get to Emily Ducote's salary this week with how many points she scores, with how difficult it is to finish Demopoulos. And even Demopoulos, she hits hard and has got an opportunistic submission game. So she's the one with the upside in the fight. So all three of those fades are excellent this week.
And Monk, who are you fading this week?
Love those, especially against Cledson. I mean, Jesus, he beat Shannon Ross. Now what are we doing? Yeah, I'm going Khaos Williams to get a little bit different here. Look, his point, early on in his UFC career, scoring a ton of points, and even overall in his career, 98.63. That's a pretty damn good number, especially at $8,200. But let's look at his last 3 wins: 74 against Semmelsberger, 78 in a knockout finish, 3rd round, but still a finish against Baeza, 84 against Rolando Bedoya in a split decision. He was $9,500 that week, most expensive fighter on the card. Now he's the cheapest favorite, but we're going up against Carlston Harris here, who's only allowing, 3.7 against Wells. He was getting beat up that whole fight until he found that sub, and he only gave up 3.7 points per minute, less than 2 to Gooden, a bunch against Shavkat, 5.3, less than 1 against Impa, and well under that against Christian Aguilera. So he's not giving up a ton of points, and I actually like him a lot in this fight over Khaos Williams. So it's a matter of some trends kind of converging here. Khaos going down, Harris on the way up, and that's kind of how I'm seeing this. So I'm going to try to get a little bit of savings and fade the Ox fighter just a little bit at 8,200.
All right. We'll move on to our favorite underdog, and we'll stick with you, Monk. Who are you liking as a dog this week?
Well, I do have Harris on my list, but I just talked about him, so let's go super quickly. It's going to be Alateng Haile, the Mongolian knight himself. He's lost 2 of his last 5, Casey Kenny and Chris Gutierrez. Not terrible opponents. Got a first-minute finish against everyone's favorite fighter, Kevin Kroom. And like I said, like I alluded to in a quick comment in the last one, Rodriguez has only beat Shannon freaking Ross, who might be one of the worst fighters in the entire promotion here. Didn't look great against Vergara and then got kind of smashed up against Basharat. I just think he might be a little overpriced, and I'm willing to take a shot on that with a guy that I don't know which one of you said it. Alateng Haile's got 7 or so UFC fights, ton of UFC experience. I believe it's like 90 total minutes in the octagon against a guy that's only beaten Shannon Ross. So give me Alateng Haile, one of my favorite dogs this week, 7,600. Let's get it done. For Mongolia,
Weezy, who are you liking as a dog this week?
Mongolia, stand up.
Right.
Yeah, we got Carlston Harris this week. Great dog. He's the most expensive one on the roster, but he scores over 3 points per minute. Carlston Harris is scoring 91 points per win. Great submission game. This guy can rack up takedowns. The thing about Khaos Williams is the takedown defense has looked excellent thus far in the UFC, but there's 7 fights for Khaos Williams, only 10 takedown attempts against. Somebody like Williams is the kind of guy who can change his game plan based on the weaknesses of his opponent. And we might see Carlston go and try to smother this dude. If he does that, he could rack up a ton of points here at 8,000 if he's successful getting takedowns and racking up a bunch of control time, landing a bunch of little shots on the ground. So I think Carlston's a pretty live dog this week.
Yep. I'm going to go with Edson Barboza here. He's sitting at 7,700. I like that salary. Some money's coming in on Barboza. It looks like he's now a plus 118 underdog. Yeah, I think it's a close fight. I feel like it could really go either way. But with Barboza, he just showed in his last fight that still at 38 years old, he can go the full 25 minutes. He battled some adversity in that Sodiq Yusuff fight and then ended up winning like the last 4 rounds of the fight, almost knocking out Sodiq Yusuff in that third. He showed volume, he showed toughness, and he has a ton of power. He always has, and he still does. So I like Barboza here. As an underdog, I like the salary, get that main event guy in there. And Gordo, who you liking as a dog this week?
I like all 3 of those. The only thing I would add on those is, to Brady, you got to add in the benefit of the post-USADA era. That might be helpful here as well. For Monk, you also have to remember that there once was a man who only had 1 win before getting to the UFC, and that win was against Shannon Ross. That man grew up to be Steve Erceg. And, maybe that's just the best base. You need to beat Shannon Ross to be able to move on to the next level.
True.
For me, favorite dog, the only one that I have left here that we haven't talked about is one that, has his own upside. He has a ton of risks in his own right, but Ramiz Brahimaj, 7.8K. I do think he has a grappling path to victory. I do think he has a very legit submission game that could go out there and score him another first-round sub. Those are the way he's won his only 2 UFC bouts so far, and in doing so, I do think he has an opponent in Themba Gorimbo who is very aggressive and overzealous in positions, who puts himself in dangerous situations. So I do think there is definitely a path for Brahimaj to score that first-round finish. I do think he's very live to do so at 7.8K.
Yep, makes sense to me. All right, so let's move on to our prize picks play. Our prize picks play for this week, and we will start with our Uncle Weezy. What do you got for prize picks?
Got him.
I don't know what you guys are talking about. I had a 2-week play, or I had a 2-leg play earlier in the week. It was the Oumar C against Trócoli under for significant strikes. Now they had it at 53.5, you guys. That would have been way too high because Oumar's a wrestler, and usually about less than half of the amount of significant strikes that are landed per minute at distance are landed on the ground. So when you can find wrestlers with high amounts of significant strikes, it's a good way to play under, but that fight got called off. So I had also Lerone Murphy under 24.75 minutes fight time. Now that got changed to 20. So my whole play just fell apart like a Chinese motorcycle. So I got to give you another leg now because we got something that's available here, and it's going to be Uncle Weezy's ass shaving of the week. Adrian Yanez to go out there and win in under 9.75 minutes of fight time. I think he needs about 9.75 seconds to dispose of this fraud, Vinicius Salvador. They're giving him 9.75 minutes to do it, and you even cash if Vinicius Salvador somehow wins inside of 10 minutes. So, yeah, under 9.75 minutes fight time for Adrian Yanez is what I like this week.
Yeah, I know you don't watch the interviews typically, but Salvador promised a first-round knockout win against Yanez. He said, write it down.
I wouldn't even waste the fucking ink.
Write it down, take a picture. I don't give a fuck.
Yeah, I laughed when I saw that. He said, write it down.
Brady, what kind of haircut did you walk in with?
I think like a normal, like really short hair. Nothing silly yet, but I think he does it on weigh-in day if it happens. So still have time. All right. So Yanez less than 9 minutes. Was it 9.5 or 9.75?
9.75 is what I'm showing on it right now.
Cool. For me, I'm taking another less on the fight time. It's going to be Magomedov less than 6.5 minutes fight time. This guy has a ton of first round finishes, a couple finishes early second round as well. And if he does not finish Alves in the first round, I have some concerns about him winning in general. I mean, this guy just seems to fall off a cliff anytime that fight has hit round 2 thus far in the UFC. Alves got knocked out in his last fight in the first round, got dropped by a jab. It was a terrible look. I think Alves wins in the first 5 minutes. Also covers, Warlley Alves is pretty dangerous early, has a lot of power in his own right. So, yeah, I think Alves gets him out of there early, though. Yeah, 6.5 minutes taken the less. Gordo, what do you like for this week for prize picks?
Yeah, I am struggling to have my page load. I'm not going to lie. So let's come back to me in a couple seconds.
Monk, what do you got for prize picks?
Love those minutes ones. I've got another under, but it is risky. But I'm going to switch it up. I'm going to go over Piera Rodriguez, 2.5 takedowns. I've been slamming the takedown lines lately, and I really, really like this one. I'm not going to get into too much detail because I'm going to be repeating myself in about 5 to 10 minutes if I do. But we'll just say Carnelossi, 2 years off. Can't stop a takedown historically, and Rodriguez should be able to land 3 minimum. And I think this one goes all 15. And I think that we have a really good chance here of going over that 3 takedowns landed. So give me Piera Rodriguez, and I will be talking about that again here shortly.
Yep, I have that one too, Monk. I mean, it just makes way too much sense. 8%. You don't see a takedown defense that bad ever. I mean, that is piss poor. You're on a Carnelossi. Piss poor. Gordo, what do you got for prize picks?
I also went with a takedown line. I have been having audio issues, so I apologize if I take anybody else's play that's already been mentioned. But I'm taking the over Lerone Murphy's takedowns 1.5. I do think it's one where, you know what, he has historically been a guy who likes to strike, but in this matchup here, I do like to think Lerone Murphy is a pretty cerebral guy. He went out there landed 3 against Coolbaugh when he had to, and now he has 5 rounds to work against a guy in Edson Barboza who has historically shown weakness on the ground. So I do think at 1.5 takedowns, he has 25 minutes to work, have the ability to go out there and lead and send takedowns. I do think he's going to have an issue striking with this juiced threat of a legend here in Edson Barboza. So maybe the grappling's the play. 1.5 takedowns. I don't mind that line.
Yep, 25 minutes to get it. Randy, I see your questions in the chat. We will get to them at the end. I have it starred and ready to go. We'll move on to our favorite GPP play, and I'll kick this one off. I'm going to go with Tom Nolan. He is the most expensive fighter on the card, but for a very good reason. He's going against a guy that got knocked out by Jordan Levitt. I think it's a great spot for Tom Nolan to get back on track here. You know, there was some hype after his Dana White's Contender Series win, and a lot of that hype died after getting knocked out by Nicholas Mota. But I think he goes out there and knocks out Martinez. I think it comes early. I think it comes in the first round. I don't see this fight lasting too long. Martinez has 5 losses. I believe 4 of them coming inside the distance. Nolan has a ton of power. He's going to have a massive height advantage. He's going to have a reach advantage as well. And I think Nolan wins this fight within the first round and a half at worst. So give me Nolan, 9,500. I think he sparks Martinez. Weezy, who you liking as the GPP play this week?
Yeah, every once in a while, there's a guy that comes into the UFC and you wonder why the hell they got put there, you know, and there's a few of them on this card. Vinicius Salvador, why? Tamiris Vidal, why? And then, you know, Victor Martinez, why? Dude, he's horrible. He broke this dude's arm, Rosales, in the first round, and then went 50-50 with him with a guy with one arm. And they sign him because he landed 141 significant strikes. Dude, a good fighter would have landed 350. You know, this guy's terrible. He's just terrible. And then with Tom Nolan, you know, I mean, he's a pressure fighter. He's literally twice the size of this guy. You know, so I mean, I really think he's just gonna absolutely buzzsaw this dude and make it look very easy. I don't know why, you know, Victor Martinez got signed. And I mean, it's going to be even more of a mystery after Tom Nolan shaves his ass on Saturday.
Yeah, makes sense. Makes sense. Monk, who are you liking as the GPP play this week?
Well, let's just do it now. Piero Rodriguez, 8,800, I do believe, is the salary. Yeah, so we're upper mid range, but we're still in a decent price here. Like I just said, this is a mixture of, I think the fight goes the distance and a ton of takedowns and control time from Piera La Fiera Rodriguez. Like I said, Carnelossi, 2 years off. You guys ever seen Rick and Morty where he's got that one gigantic arm? That's like Carnelossi, but with 2 of them. So I'm not sure how her cardio is going to look. She's much like whoever we've talked about before, beating only Shannon Ross. She has only beat Estela Nunes and Na Liang, sorry, Brady, in her UFC career. So not the greatest names there. Taking losses to Angel Hill and Godinez, but she took 8 takedowns. Lupi Godinez apparently decided to take to use takedowns and wrestling in that fight. Took her down 8 times there. Na Liang took her down 3 times. So Pieta can definitely take her down. And in the Sam Hughes fight, she took Hughes down 5 times and also landed over 5.5 strikes per minute. Ending up with 93 points there. So I'd like to see some more points. I think we can see some more volume and maybe some more control time to improve that number. But I love Pieta Rodriguez this week. As long as some meme knockout from Carnelossi doesn't happen, I think we're pretty good there.
Yeah, I think that's a sneaky call. I like it. Gordo, what are you liking for a GPP play this week?
I like that play. One of my favorite stats that I'd see posted would be the people who were tested in 2023, and it was like Ariana Carnelossi, John Jones, both at like 50, and then everybody else below. It's like, you know, something's up. This girl scares the shit out of me, dude. She's huge. And you know what? Despite that, I'm still picking Pierre Rodriguez with you too. GBP for me, I'm going to go right above you. Abus Magomedov 9K. Get a step down in competition, in my opinion, after facing a pretty good strength of schedule there. A guy who I do think is very explosive, a guy who I think the UFC is treating as the A side here. And I think he's got an opponent who doesn't really have to worry about gassing out against, because he definitely has an opponent who will gas out himself there after that. I do think Magomedov has the opportunities to win early, win late. We've seen Alves knocked out before. I do think he is the a very explosive fighter with a good chance to win inside the distance as well, and I like him in GPP.
Fair enough. I like it as well. All right, let's move on to our favorite cash play, and we'll start with our Uncle Weezy. What do you got for cash this week, Weezy?
Adrian Yanez, Uncle Weezy's ass shaving of the week. Don't listen to Vinicius Salvador. He's not going to knock out Adrian Yanez in the first round. If he couldn't do that to Victor Altamirano, if he couldn't do that to CJ Vergara, he's not doing it to Adrian Yanez.
And Shannon Ross.
Oh my God, Shannon Ross. It took him until the late second round. And do you know that they thought that Vinicius Salvador was so good for beating on Shannon Ross that they gave him a contract, and then they found, oh wow, that guy is actually really bad. Jesus Aguilar knocked him out in 8 seconds, and it took like 133 significant strikes for this pillow-fisted loser to get Shannon Ross out of there, and he's going to go out there and knock out Adrian Yanez in round one. No, cash means you want to get an easy win. And 9,300, there's a real easy win on this slate. It's Adrian Yanez. He's fighting a bum with a shitty haircut and who's also delusional.
He is pretty delusional. I couldn't believe what he said at media day. For me, I'm going to get a little weird here. I'm going to actually go with Angela Hill, 8,300. I like her in this matchup. I like the fact that she's super durable. And in this fight, I feel like it could be a close fight. Like Pinheiro, I feel like she could have some success early, but we see it in every single Pinheiro fight. She looks decent in that first round, but once that second round hits, especially like the 1.5 round mark hits, she just has nothing left. Her cardio is terrible. Angela Hill, she's tough as nails. She's not going to get finished early. Angela Hill has 5-round cardio, and then Angela Hill has some solid output as well. We saw her go out there and put up 108 against Gomes. We saw her put up 104 against Dakota. I feel like she could put up one of those performances here against Pinheiro, weather that early storm, and just really put it on her in the second and third round. I can see a ton of significant strikes here down the stretch. She's 8,300, and I think she's safe to, like, in a win, I think she has decent upside, but in a loss even, I feel like her floor is solid just because of the durability of Angela Hill there. So that's what I'm going with in cash. Gordo, what do you like for cash this week?
Yeah, I'm going all the way up to Tom Nolan, 9.5. I mean, is there a worse knockout loss than Jordan Levitt like that? Like can we find one? Genuinely?
No. Nope.
Like, would you be
Did
more
Damian
surprised?
Maia ever knock anyone out?
Would you be more surprised if Tamira's Vidal went and knocked him out? Like, who knows at this point? So to me, I think we got a spot here, Martinez, who really rates out as more of a volume-based striker. I don't really see there being too much risk with Nolan. Nolan's a guy who I think is going to have the opportunity to go out there, blitz him early, score well, or even just beat him with his range down the stretch. I do think the floor is pretty safe for him, which is really tough to say with a guy with a DraftKings average score of 4.8 points.
Yep. No, I agree. Monk, cash play for this week.
Yeah, technically it's Edson Barboza, or actually it is Edson Barboza, but technically it's the whole fight in general. I mean, this is a cash dream. Like I said, I got to go back and do some research, but I mean, I'm sure there is a fight that has scored. Obviously, there has to be a fight that scored more than that, but 226 or 7 or 8 points for two guys is fantastic score, especially when we're looking for cash like this. We're right at the mid-range salary. Of course, I'm leaning the dog. I'm picking him outright, so I do like him a little more. I mean, he's 38 years old now, 37 years old. He put up 129 points. Absolutely ridiculous in a 5-round fight where he got kind of worked on for the first part of it. 108 against Billy Quarantillo. So, yeah, I love Barboza here, but if you're slotting in Lerone Murphy, I'm certainly not complaining either. And if you're stacking them up, that is definitely an option this week on a 12-fight card with some possible totals in the range that I was just talking about. So technically it's Edson Barboza, but this fight as a whole, great cash play.
Yep, agreed. Like the salary, then I think there's some upside, really, for both guys, but I'm with you. Barboza would be my favorite out of the two. Moving on to the favorite value play. And yeah, Monk talked about this one. For me, it's actually Piera Rodriguez, 8,800. The reason I like her as a value play is I feel like she can, go out there and put up a big score this week. She's cheaper than a lot of fighters on this slate. And yeah, she's going against Carnelossi, who has had a major layoff. She had a major injury as well. And quite frankly, I'm just not sure what Carnelosi's good at other than, being very jacked. I mean, her striking defense is non-existent. I think she's a little bit chinny. Her takedown defense is the worst in the UFC. So I just feel like Piera Rodriguez has a lot of avenues to win this fight. I feel like she can win it by any which method. Could be a knockout. Like I said, Carnelosi's been dropped by like Liang Na. Could be a dominant decision, or Rodriguez could get her first submission. Carnelosi's been subbed a couple times. So I like Rodriguez here, and I feel like she's sneaky. I feel like she's gonna be a little low owned, and I feel like she can put up a big score this week. Gordo, who you liking as a value play?
Yeah, as a guy we haven't talked about at all, it's going to be Khaos Williams, 8.2K. I know there's been a lot of love for the grapple-heavy game plan of Harris, but I do think that the metrics work out well for Khaos Williams. 80% takedown defense is seen to be a pretty physical force with a ton of knockout power, and although Harris isn't always given the most points, Williams is a guy who I do think can knock anybody out cold at any time, is a guy who I do think has a lot of upside to win in his own right, and is a guy who I do think has shown that he is working towards winning minutes more often recently. He has got some better wins in his record, and a guy who I'm just picking to win. So 8.2K with his amount of knockout power, the way we've seen Harris finish before, I would not be surprised in the early knockout. I do think at his salary, he could live off to be value.
Yeah, so I always thought Khaos Williams was possessed, kind of like Gene Silva, ever since that Abdulrazak Al-Hassan fight where he was just like foaming out of the mouth. And then today at Media Day, he kind of confirmed that he is possessed, or he's like demonic. I mean, he said that something along the lines of he's going to take Carlston Harris's soul from his body. I mean, Khaos Williams is a terrifying guy. I mean, some of these guys are just terrifying, and Khaos Williams is certainly one of them. So he wants to take Carlston Harris's soul. Salvador wants to knock out Adrian Yanez. So yeah, we got a couple nice things at Media Day today. Monk, who are you liking for a value play this week?
What did he just see? That clip from Key and Peele like 45 years ago where they did the exact same thing?
Oh, yes.
Come on, Chaos. We got to do better with our post and our pre-fight talk for sure. Yeah, I guess I don't really like the price because his path to victory is pretty narrow and pointed. But give me Ramiz Brahimaj. I mean, Themba Gorimbo expected to probably come out here and win, I would think. That's what most people are probably thinking. But Brahimaj, obviously, I mean, Gorimbo's a guy that makes mistakes, and not just one or two. He definitely is out there. He's not the most polished fighter, and he's only beaten Pete Rodriguez, Takashi Sato so far. Brahimaj's wins aren't much better. It's Michael Gilmore and Sasha Palatnikov. So put those four together, and you've got a real, probably the worst MMA tournament of all time. But yeah, I'll take Brahimaj. If Gorimbo puts himself in a bad position, if anyone can capitalize on it, it's Brahimaj, and he is an underdog. He is kind of expensive for a dog, but if he does get that sub, a la Palatnikov or Gilmore, we're going to be looking at 100 or so points. But yeah, you would really want to see it in the first or second round to maximize those points, because we're not out here seeing a ton of strikes being thrown or a ton of points from Brahimaj. But if Gorimbo puts himself in a bad position, I think Brahimaj holds value at 7,800.
Yeah, and then I think Weezy value play for this week.
And that's why Gorimbo Brahimaj is such a great fight to target, because I'm taking the other side, and I say that there's value on Themba Gorimbo, because Themba Gorimbo scores 5.49 DraftKings points per minute thus far in the UFC. So he's a high volume guy. He wrestles a lot. And with Brahimaj, you got a guy who, a lot of people are like, oh, he's been in there against the better guys. And it's absolutely true. I mean, Max Griffin and Court McGee are so much better than anybody that Themba's been in there against yet. But how did Ramiz perform against Court McGee? How did he perform against Max Griffin? He performed in a way that suggests he doesn't belong here. Dude, find me a better Court McGee performance I'll give you 10 fucking years. Yeah. Find me a better performance in the last 10 years out of Court McGee than when he fought Brahimaj. He won all 3 rounds of that fight. It was complete. I mean, like every Court McGee decision is 29-28, even the ones back in 2011. So the fact that he's styling on a guy like Brahimaj tells you all you need to know about this guy. Brahimaj is a guy who made his UFC debut with a 9-win record, all 9 wins by submission. And how many takedowns did he attempt against Max Griffin? 0. What's Brahimaj's fight IQ? 0. So I think that Gorimbo at about 5.5 points per minute a guy who's going to mix in the wrestling. Monk did nail it, though. If Gorimbo makes a mistake, he could open the door and get submitted, and that's how Brahimaj would score his points. But I think Gorimbo is going to win this fight, and at 8,400, he's easily the highest output DraftKings scorer on this entire slate.
Yeah, I mean, I think the winner scores very well one way or another. Great fight to target. Dart throw this week. Looking for a dart throw, somebody that's going to be low owned, and we'll start with Gordo. What do you got for a dart throw?
Oh, it's not pretty, especially with his bottom range. So I think you have to go to Warlley Alves, 7.2K. I did talk about the upside that someone like Magomedov has with a lot of early success and maybe later. But when Warlley Alves wins fights, it scores well. I mean, his last win, his only win in his last 5 fights, scored 116, and that was an early finish win. He's been able to do that before. The guy has a ton of power. His last 3 wins in the UFC all come by knockout, and I do think he is, I don't want to say limited to that in this spot, but definitely has the upside to go out there and score well. I will have some ownership of him due to his upside, and he will be my dart throw.
Weezy, who got for a dart throw this week?
The fighting pride of the great nation of Greece, Vanessa Demopoulos. She can finish. She's got a little bit of power. She's got a little bit of a sneaky submission game. And at 7,000 against Ducote, who couldn't finish her banana this morning, she's going to give you 15 minutes. Even in a loss, she can give you in the 40 to 45 point range. But Demopoulos does have some upside because she does have submission upside. She does have knockout upside. She's plus 150 on the finish only line, but she's like plus 250 on the money line. So even the bookies know that with Vanessa being a big underdog, that she has more finish equity than Ducote compared to the probabilities of their win probabilities. So I do think that at 7K, there's some upside on the Demopoulos side. And even if you don't worry about the upside and you don't get that, as far as punting, you got a bunch of fighters that stink down there. I think Vanessa stinks a little bit less than all the rest of them.
Yeah, I can agree with that. I went with Alves as well, just because anytime we've seen Abus out of the first in the UFC this far, he's looked terrible. I mean, I know it's Sean Strickland, but once that fight hit the second round, he just had absolutely nothing left. In the Kyle fight, looked a little bit better in the later rounds, but and then round 3, he just had absolutely nothing left as well. So if Alves can weather an early storm here, which I kind of think he gets knocked out early, but if he is able to weather that early storm, he's super cheap. And at the very least, Alves has shown that he can fight into those later rounds. Not great, but better than Magomedov. So that's my dart throw, but I really kind of hate everything down low here. Monk, what do you got for a dart throw this week?
Yeah, my number one was Demopoulos. So I'll just shoot on Tom Nolan real quick. Look, I gave this guy all kinds of shit last time about how we can't trust him. And then he goes out and gets KO'd by Nicholas Mata. He had 6 fights at that point in his professional career. And now he has 7. So huge, just a huge number compared to 6. So yeah, just still no experience. He has one minute inside the octagon. Meanwhile, Victor Martinez, no, not really, but yeah, I'm going to give you Victor Martinez. First of all, his nickname's better. Tom Big Train Nolan against Vic the Brick. Come on, it's not even close. And that getting knocked out by Jordan Levitt was a freaking fluke, man. I tell you, it was a fluke. So, no, my main thing is I'm picking Nolan. I think he's going to smash, but he still only has 7 pro fights. He is still completely untrustable, and he still got KO'd by Nicholas fucking Mata in 1 minute. So anything could happen. Don't go putting him in a ton like 80, 70. I know you probably can't at that price, but all your lineups, you know what I mean? And I do think Victor Martinez is worth like the slightest dart throw this week.
All right.
Yeah, I don't know if I actually believe anything I said except that Tom Nolan's nickname sucks, but there you go.
I mean, you're right. I mean, Tom Nolan barely has any fights, but yeah. All right. So we'll get the scores from last week. We'll do our lineups. We'll do our quick picks. Then we'll head out of here. If you guys have any questions, type them in the chat. We'll get to them. I have a couple starred for you guys in a second. So we'll look at the scores from last week, and they vanished. They're gone. So let's move on to, no, just kidding. In 4th place was myself. I had that bum, Monteus Rebecki with 56. I had that bum, Rebelis de Spain with 11. I had that bum, Slava Borshev with 0. I had that bum, Terrence McKinney with 2. I had Billy Goff with 61, and then Derek Lewis with 88. I scored 221.05. Worst week in a while. In third place was Monk. He had Mateus Rebexi as well, 56. Rivovix, 127. Trey Waters, 75. Borshev, 0. Ruzabov, 20. And then Menefield, 0. Monk scored 281.43. In second place was Gordo. He had Olberg, 127. Despain, 11. Hadley, 23. Lewis, 88. Goff, 61. And McKinney, 2. Gordo scored 314. And then in first place was Weezy. Rebecca, 56. Despain, 11. Rubix, 127. Lewis, 88. Goff, 61. Menefield, 0. Weezy scored 345.62. Probably our worst scores as a whole, probably all year. But congrats, Weezy. You got first place, and you weren't on vacation to do it.
Yeah, but definitely the cream of the crap this week, your Uncle Weezy. You know, everybody else just stunk a little bit more than I did. 0 points out of Menefield. Yeah, it was a weird week. You know, St. Louis was a bit of an odd week, but I mean, you know, we all stunk. So I'm just happy to kind of come out with a little bit of a win, gain a little bit of points on all you guys, but still a lot of work to do left this year.
Yeah, let's take a look at these standings for the year. We are 16 cards in. In fourth place, we have Uncle Weezy with 6,299. In third place is Monk with 6,438. Second place is Gordo with 6,509. And then first place is myself with 6,585. Gordo, you're 76 behind the leader. Monk is 147 behind the leader, and then Weezy is 286 behind the leader. These are getting very close between the four of us. So it's getting very interesting. All right, lineups for this week. Let's start with Monk. What do you got for this week?
Well, with the obligatory, this will change, especially since we have two fighters that have no salaries. I'll give you probably what's going to be a popular salary or lineup. Tom Nolan, Pieta Rodriguez, Lerone Murphy, Themba Gorimbo, Edson Barboza, and Vanessa Demopoulos.
We have 3 of the same. Gordo, what do you got for this week?
Man, I want this Tukos fighting. So this one will change for me right now. But let's go with Tom Nolan up top, Piera Rodriguez, Khaos Williams. Oh my. Luana Pinheiro, Ramiz, Brahimaj, and Edson Barboza.
We have 3 of the same as well. Weezy, what do you got for this week?
I got up top, I've got Tom Big Train Nolan and Uncle Weezy's ass shaving of the week, Adrian Yanez. The other favorite in there is Themba Gorimbo. And then we're going with Carlston Harris, Edson Barboza, and the fighting pride of the great country of Greece, Vanessa Little Monster Demopoulos.
There we go. We have 4 of the same. Weezy. I'm as well going Nolan, and I am going Adrian Yanez, and then I'm going Angela Hill, then I'm going Edson Barboza, I'm going Ramiz Brahimaj, and then I'm going Vanessa Demopoulos as well down low. All right, let's get to some questions here. If you guys have any questions, type them in the chat. We got Randy in here. What is up, Randy? He's saying, who will be the highest scoring fighter? Weezy, highest scoring fighter if you had to pick one.
I would pick Nolan because the guy's output is incredible, and his opponent is probably the worst fighter on the entire card. So it's just a great style, and it's a really bad opponent. I mean, like, Nolan's kind of in a bad spot here because, you know, this guy just got knocked out by Jordan Levitt. So, like, the fucking expectations couldn't be any higher, and anything but a first-round knockout for Nolan against this guy is going to be a disappointment. But, I mean, the reason it's going to be a disappointment is because he's so much better than this dude. He's so much bigger than this dude. So it should be Nolan this week.
Yep, my pick is Nolan as well. Monk, who do you say scores the most on this card?
How's that even fair? 5'8", 6'3". That's ridiculous. Yeah, first minute finishes aside, say we don't get any. I really think Pieta Rodriguez has a great shot. 8% takedown defense for Carnelisi. Get the fuck out of here. I think she'll be sneaky too. Everybody's going to want Nolan. Everybody's going to want Yanez. Maybe even Abbas as well. So she's going to slide right under the radar.
Yeah, it was between her and Nolan for me. Gordo, who do you think scores the highest this week?
I got those two as well, which is what I hope so for my lineup. But sneakily this week, I also think Abusupiyan Magomedov has some good opportunities to score well early, whether it be with knockdowns or an early finish.
Yep, makes sense. Why does DK wait so long to release other fighters' salaries? That's a great question. Because they're lazy, maybe?
Well, they wait on lines, and I didn't even see lines for this Tuku fight until like a couple hours ago. So I looked this morning. I didn't see anything at 10. I didn't see anything at noon. So it's not. I'll give DraftKings a break here this time. Generally, yeah, laziness probably slow, most likely,
which is fine. It's okay to be lazy sometimes.
Yeah, but I think it's the line. It's no lines being released for this fight. It's kind of wild. For 2 days, 2.5 days, 3 days.
Yeah. So no Dixon questions. So we're gonna get out of here kind of early. All right, guys, we'll do quick picks for.
Never mind. Yep, that was it. You got it.
No, say it.
I was gonna say quick picks.
Okay. Yeah, we'll do quick picks. We'll start with our Uncle Weezy. What do you got for quick picks this week?
Okay, starting with the main event, Edson Barboza, 4th round knockout. Khaos Williams, 1st round knockout. Themba Gorimbo by decision. Adrian Yanez is Uncle Weezy's ass shaving of the week. I got a 2nd round knockout for him. I got Angie Hill by decision. Tom Big Train Nolan, 1st round ass shaving knockout. C by decision. Gordo, 2nd round knockout. Magomedov, 1st round knockout. Rodriguez by decision. Alatang Haley, 2nd round knockout. Emily Ducote by decision.
All right. Monk, what do you got for quick picks?
Yeah, we'll go Barboza decision. We'll go Carlston Harris sub 2. Gilly. We'll go Themba Gorimbo KO 1. Yanez KO 1. Hill decision. Nolan KO 1. Wow, a lot of early finishes for me. Side decision. Gordo decision. Magomedov KO 1. Rodriguez, Alatang Haili, and Emily Ducote all by decision.
All right, I'm going Barboza round 3 knockout. Williams decision. Brahimaj submission round 1 rear naked choke. Yanez KO 2. Angela Hill decision. Nolan KO 1. Sai KO 1. Gordo submission round 2 tap to strikes. Magomedov KO 1. Rodriguez decision, and Ducote by decision. Gordo, what do you got for this week?
Yeah, I'm going Murphy by decision. Khaos Williams KO 1, Themba Gorimbo KO 2, Yanez KO 2, Hill decision, Tom Nolan KO 1, C KO 1, Gato decision, Abusupiyan Magomedov KO 1. What is that? 5 of them? Pierre Rodriguez decision, Clinton Rodriguez decision, and Ducote decision.
Perfect. Sounds good to me. All right, guys, we're gonna get out of here a little bit early. It's not the best card in the world, but yeah, it's certainly a card. I'll say that. We're gonna kick it around. We'll start with our Uncle Weezy. Uncle Weezy, what do you got going on for this week? I believe we're going live in about, what is that, 18 minutes?
18 minutes. Probability. Uncle Weezy's Patreon, Uncle Weezy's Dub Club, $25 a month. If you don't have that kind of money, you can't watch our show because it's only for the fucking members. So if you're broke, you're not going to be able to watch it anyway. So fuck off. But we've got that. We got Just the Tip came out last night. Pub Sports Radio 3 times a week. Uncle Weezy's YouTube channel, and join us on the Patreon or Dub Club. Plus EV bets on every fight of this card. We're going to look at the numbers. We're going to look at our stylistic reads, and we're going to come up with ways to stack cash tickets like flapjacks and bathe in the blood of our vanquished DraftKings enemies, and then enjoy the week off before we come back to UFC 302, Makhachev versus Poirier. So for those of you who thought this show sucked because the fights were ass, just wait until 2 weeks from now. It's going to get better, folks.
Yeah, you broke-ass mother... No.
Yes. All right. Monk, what do you got going on?
Let's see here. We got Bankroll or Bust. It's going to be a good one because this card is not a good one. So, yeah, we've got... Yes, Gordo, unfortunately, was dethroned. We've got Sniper wins. We've got TB from Chronic Combat Conversations, and we've got Red Beard Bets coming on. We'll be recording that about 8 p.m., so it'll be posted shortly after. So be sure to check that one out. And then, of course, Monk and Lou's Happy Hour, Thursday nights, 12 Eastern, 11 p.m. Central. Yeah, we'll turn this one into something fun. I'm sure Lou will put the sombrero on for at least one of the fights. And, yeah, we'll see what happens. So, yeah, check it out.
I mean, which fight warrants a sombrero on this card? I mean,
well, Lou's he's pretty loose with it. So I mean,
loose.
yeah, exactly. There's a few options. We'll just say that.
Okay, fair enough. And then last but not least, Gordo, what you got going on for this week?
I'm not gonna lie, man. I've been lazy. I've been I've been waiting for these salaries to come out to edit my video. Maybe I'm being a bit lazy. It should be out later tonight on the Plays and Fades YouTube channel. Aside from that, you can find my DraftKings work on Establish the Run, where I do podcast projection, all that stuff with Brett Apley over there. So go check that out. Wish everyone all the best of luck in your DraftKings and betting endeavors. Enjoy the week off next week.
Yeah, I mean, nothing's wrong with being lazy some weeks, you know. I mean, the UFC's was super lazy putting together this card. I mean, Pierre Rodriguez, Ariana Carnelossi, you know, throwing fighters like Tamiris Vidal on there. I mean,
I think they've been on spring break.
Martinez.
Yeah, I mean, that's some lazy matchmaking going on in this card. But
Islam and Poirier is going to turn our luck around, though.
Yeah, that's a fun fight. That's a fun fight. So looking forward to that.
Summer off.
Yep, 100%. So yeah, me and Weezy going live in 15 minutes. Looking forward to diving deep into these fights, trying to find some spots. And then other than that, regular content, full card breakdown is out. Going live Friday for some final thoughts, and then live Saturday for some best of luck, everybody, for UFC Vegas 92. And we'll talk to you guys soon. See you later.